All right, next thing I want to talk about, Jay Dulac drops a little offensive line bomb that might sway how we feel about where the Pittsburgh Steelers are headed this offseason and the direction that they're going to go with filling some holes or some needed holes on the offensive line. He said that during his weekly chat, Mason Cole, center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steelers love him. They like his leadership. They like his intangibles. They would like him a little bit more as a backup center / swing guard. That's what he's played for a good chunk of his NFL career. Look at just two sides of this coin here. I love Mason Cole. I think you love Mason Cole. Mason Cole is like the best human in the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room, maybe hands down. Like, that guy never says a bad thing. He's always smiling. He's always joking with you. He's always open to just like have normal conversation. That guy's the best. As a player, I think we spent most of the season talking about issues and mistakes and how the Steelers probably need a center. So I feel like it makes sense. I mean, there's two sides to this. Do you think that Mason Cole would remain with the Pittsburgh Steelers to be a backup? And do you think that the Steelers, maybe Dulac is kind of giving us some insight on the Steelers are hunting for a center pretty high in free agency or the NFL draft?
Yeah, I mean, not without knowing what the center market, looks like around the NFL right now. I don't think Mason Cole would get a starting. I don't think he's likely to get a starting job anywhere else. So
yeah,
I feel like he'd feel comfortable remaining with the Steelers kind of in any situation and being willing to say, hey, I'm the backup, but I know they like me and they want to keep me around. So why not stick with what's safe and what's comfortable?
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. I just thought it was funny the way this was phrased. Like, the Steelers love Mason Cole, but when he's not on the field, yeah. So, I mean, I think this does signal that they're looking for a center at some point in the draft. And I think the interesting thing is that there are levels to it. So, like, yeah, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon seems like a first round guy.
Yes.
But like, then there's Zach Frazier and the Georgia center.
Georgia.
Yeah, Cedric is like Van Pratt or something. He has some weird like sound of music type name. Like, it's, but like, those are guys who are second or third round. Like, you have options. You have some flexibility. Like, if you miss out on Jackson Powers Johnson, like, he's a stud, but I feel like you could feel comfortable using that pick on, a tackle, on an inside linebacker, on a corner, whatever you want, really. And then saying in the second round, like, okay, Van Pratt's going to be there, Frazier's going to be there. Like, we have options there that we feel pretty confident in as well. So, I think a center will get picked at some point in this draft. Where exactly, where exactly one gets picked, I'm not sure. But I feel like the Steelers have flexibility and they can say, like, that first pick that they have is a complete wild card in my eyes.
Oh,
like,
100%.
They could go in about 5 different directions based on who falls where.
Yes.
So could be a center, could be an inside linebacker, could be a corner. Like, they have a ton of options, but I think a center is coming off the board to the Pittsburgh Steelers at some point this offseason, whether or not they keep Mason Cole or not. So,
yeah, I agree. Do you? And I think I'll talk about the draft first, and then I got a question for you. Do you? I agree, and I think Jackson Powers Johnson is a stud, but I also understand if you're going to get attacked, like, you have to understand there's other holes here when you're talking about one position. So there's going to be first round tackles, and if the Steelers want to make a move for a first round tackle, I 100% support that. I think that's the way. Like, you could find another center somewhere. To get 2 franchise tackles is a complete game changer for your offensive line. That does wonders. And if you want to go corner, I think that is a staple. That would be, I mean, it has been my entire life. The Steelers have not had 2 superstar corners, not once. And you could, people will say, William Gay, Brian no. They never had an Ike Taylor and an Ike Taylor 2.0. To have a Joey Porter and a Joey Porter 2.0 would be incredible. I think that's a total game changer, so I think that's on the table. But I do think that in the first 2 rounds, I would say 2 rounds, I would say it's either their first round pick or their second round pick, the Steelers select a center. And I think maybe right now, if I had to guess, Zach Frazier would be my top guess, just because he's local. The Steelers are, I mean, they might go to Oregon's pro day, but they're definitely going to West Virginia's pro day. And I think that there's reports out there that they got a lot of interest in this guy. There's reports that they got a lot of interest in Jackson Powers-Johnson, but I think that just where Frazier falls is like ideal for the Pittsburgh Steelers in that position. Now, when it comes to Mason Cole sticking with the team, does that mean Nate Herbig is gone? Are you just keeping both of them as your swing guards? I mean, is Spencer Anderson now just like officially a tackle? Like, what how are you handling that situation? Does it change anything?
I mean, in that's a good question. I mean, I hadn't thought about it, to be quite honest with you, but my gut instinct is to say it doesn't change much. Like, I think Spencer Anderson is kind of first on the chopping block in that scenario because I think they really like
I agree.
Nick Herbig. And I think they like Nick Herbig, especially if they can say, "Hey, you're just a guard. Like, you're just a guard." But you've already got two guards that I think they really like in James Daniels and Isaac Seumalo. So
yes,
I don't know. I actually might take this back because I feel like Anderson, if he can play some tackle, like that's the guy you keep around instead of Herbig. Because if you're swinging, like I think if Mason Cole is becoming a swing guard, like I don't think you need two of those, and I feel like you already feel like the guard spot is like real locked up. Like you're only doing it in case if someone a backup guard is only going in if like someone gets hurt. And Seumalo, I know he got banged up a couple times, but he was pretty steady. Like he played a bunch of games. Like, he was sitting out of practice every day, but he was getting to game day just fine. And James Daniels, you had no issues there. So, I would be tempted to say Nick Herbig is the guy that sticks around over Mason Cole. But if they're going to keep Mason Cole, then I feel like it'd be Herbig over Anderson that goes.
I agree. Nick, what did the Steelers have Spencer Anderson listed as last year? A center or a guard? Because I think that plays a mate. Like if you could, I mean, just to lay it out there, I don't know. They're only going to keep one center on their active roster during game days, but if you could have if you could draft a tackle and then have Dan Moore and Spencer Anderson as your backups with Nate Herbig and Mason Cole as your backup interior offense, like that's a loaded offense. That's a really good offensive line. Like there are no issues there.
Spencer Anderson was listed as of right now as the third left guard behind Isaac Seumalo and Nate Herbig.
Okay. So that brings up another question. Is Spencer the guy? Like, is he a practice squad guy now? You get like, if he's a guard, if that's where they see him fit, is that a guy they because I like Spencer. I think Spencer Anderson's got potential.
That's what I'm saying. I like Spencer Anderson, so I hope they don't. I mean, I hope they would be able to keep him around on the practice squad in that scenario, but just like not room. And I feel like the shine of him, this would be his second year. I mean, he didn't really do anything during his rookie year. I feel like you could sell, if you're his agent, you can sell teams on the versatility of in his youth. So I find it hard to believe that he would be able to stay in Pittsburgh. Just feel like there would be better opportunities elsewhere. But I like him, and I really hope they can keep him because I'm a big fan of Spencer Anderson.
Me too. I think that he's got a lot of potential. I think if you could bounce him out, I think if you could keep him on the active roster just as like an everything and try to work him out there, cool. I think that works out very well. If they look at, which they might just look at him as a guard because it's tough to play all five positions on that offensive line in the NFL. I think that changes things. But I also think that brings up, like, I don't know if you'd keep Nate Herbig's only 25 years old, 26, maybe might have just turned 26. You're keeping him, Mason Cole's 28. Like at that point, you're looking at just the age difference, and Nate Herbig's got future starting potential. I think that changes a lot of things in the NFL. I also think maybe you could get something for Mason Cole. Again, I love Mason Cole as a human. I would love him to stay in Pittsburgh. He's a joy to talk to all the time. He's a joy just to hang out within the locker room. Good morale. But I don't know. Tough call, especially with, you got draft stock in Spencer Anderson. That changes a lot. A lot of questions. Very interesting to see where the Steelers go with this. I think it's exciting to kind of see the offensive line as a pretty high priority and a position that I think they've needed to address for a couple of years now, and now finally looking like they are going to is pretty cool.